Card games are serious business. Today I'm going to cover the part of the game that manages to create a clusterfuck of questions every passing day. The damage step. The damage step is a series of subsequent events that take place after attacks have successfully been declared without being negated or otherwise stopped. During the damage step, cards and their effects cannot be activated unless they meet one or more of the following criteria. 1. They are a counter trap card. 2. They are a spell speed 2 or higher effect that alters the attack and or defense of monsters. 3. They are an effect that specifies an activation timing within the damage step. 4. They are a monster's quick effect that negates the activation of a card or effect. 5. They are a special exception because Konami says so. And now that you know what can and can't be used during the damage step, let's jump into the breakdown of the damage step. In the TCG, the damage step consists of 7 distinct parts. The first is the start of the damage step. Not a whole lot normally goes on here, but there are some monsters with effects that activate at this time, such as Neospacian Grand Mole. You can also activate effects that increase, decrease, halve, or double the attack and or defense of monsters at the start of the damage step, although you won't do so very often. The second part of the damage step is when monsters are flipped face up. If you attacked a face down monster, you flip it up here so you'll be able to calculate damage later on down the line. Some monsters have effects that trigger in response to when they are flipped face up, such as YGO Lightsworn Hunter. These effects are not applied at this time. They are addressed later on. If a flipped monster has a continuous effect, like Tragodia, apply it now. If a flipped monster has a self-destructive effect, like that of the Earthbound Immortals, ignore it and continue the battle. When monsters are flipped face up, you can also activate effects that increase, decrease, halve, or double the attack and or defense of monsters, but you probably won't. Now we reach the third part of the damage step, before damage calculation. Some monsters have effects that activate here, such as Aaron Lightsworn Monk. Before damage calculation is usually going to be the time where you activate effects that increase, decrease, halve, or double the attack and or defense of monsters, since this is your last opportunity to do so in most cases. That being said, multiple chains can occur before damage calculation. We then move on to the fourth part of the damage step, damage calculation. This is when the attack and defense values of monsters are compared, and where you actually figure out the battle damage that is going to be dealt. Cards that modify a monster's attack and or defense cannot be activated from this point on, unless they explicitly mention that they can be activated during the damage step, or more specifically during damage calculation. Blackwing Kalut the Moonshadow, and cards similar to it, can be activated here or at any earlier point during the damage step. There can be only one chain during damage calculation, so tread carefully. Following damage calculation, we have the fifth part of the damage step, after damage calculation. The damage step chart is a bit hazy at this point, but we are led to believe that after damage calculation is where battle damage is actually inflicted to players. Effects like that of X-Saber Airbellum activate here. Red Dragon Archfiend's effect to destroy defense position monsters also triggers after damage calculation. Monsters with self-destructive effects similar to the Earthbound Immortals will be applied at this time. The sixth part of the damage step is called Resolve Effects. This is where the effects that triggered back when monsters are flipped face up are applied. Yes, Ryko, this is your chance to blow up a card. Good puppy. DD Warrior Lady and friends also trigger when we resolve effects. If a card like Jinzo was destroyed in battle, its continuous effects that apply while it is face up on the field are no longer applied. Finally, we reach the seventh and final sub-step. The end of the damage step is where destroyed monsters are physically sent to the graveyard. Many effects trigger in response to this event, a few of which include Mystic Tomato, Domino Effect, and Time Machine. You also apply the effects of cards like Chainsaw Insect at the end of the damage step. Whew! Alright, it's over. We're done. Once the damage step is concluded, you go back to the battle step to continue the battle phase. Since this was very abridged, those of you who want a more in-depth explanation of what goes on during the damage step, or the battle phase in general, should check out the link I put in the description. It does a much better job of explaining things than I just did, despite the one minor error I can spot in it. Later, guys. I'm going to go take a nap.